So there is a light that shines in us. And that light, when we focus on it, will extend out from us. Now, it's all mind. You know, when I was a kid, I used to, and I'm thinking as I remember, like 9, 10 years old, my grandmother used to have Oral Roberts on television. And I was fascinated by this, that he would stand up there, and he had this great voice, and of course kind of a southern kind of accent, but a powerful voice. And he would call people up to the front, and he'd lay hands on them, and some of them would fall down like a sack of potatoes, and there'd be somebody behind them to catch them, and people would come up in wheelchairs, and he'd get them up out of the wheelchair, and they would start walking around, and everybody'd be, you know, praising and all excited about it. And I thought, even when I was young like that, I thought, this is not real. This is, and later I would think about it more, and it was theater. It was drama. And I actually thought that probably all of these people were just like part of the act. They were all like shills, so to speak, and just putting this all on for the, but later I even became more conspiratorial minded, and I thought, well, no, some of them might have been, right? Some of them might have been just like props, but then others were consenting. They were going along with it, and they were actually, something was actually happening for them. Now, this was kind of a step in a direction of thinking. And then I was thinking, for a long time I thought, you know, Oral Roberts, it was, and people like him were orchestrating the whole business. And then later I started to think, well, maybe, wouldn't it work a lot better if I decided we were going to have this laying on of hands up here, and then, but I had somebody in my support staff who they were the ones who actually made the arrangements for the dramatic healings and didn't tell me. So that I actually thought that, I was just thinking, wouldn't it make better theater that way if I actually thought that that's what was going on? But what I came to over the years was this phenomena of people being healed, and a number of different things. That, yes, there for sure it's theater, and a number of people were probably inserted into the process. But there were people who were healed. There were people that were healed. And so you ask the question, why? Why were they healed? And the only answer that I can come up with was because they consented. That they, in their minds, decided to be healed. And this is really important. Because what that says to me, and because what you would ask the question, I mean, if you were a member of that church, I'm sure that if you remember that church, you saw many people who first said that they were healed, and then later they were like back in their sickness, right? And people would ask the question, well, what happened? Why did this person heal, and why did that person not heal? And the answer, and I remember being upset about this answer when I was young and going to all the classes at church, they'd say, well, it's a mystery. It's a mystery. Why? And I hate that idea, because that seems like just a reason why you don't have to explain it to me. It's a mystery how this all happens. And I think it's a mystery, but I think we can actually unravel what's going on. It really has to do with what we're willing to accept, and how we are picturing our lives. But it's not just, and see, this is one of the problems when we start to understand that it is our mind that has the ability to heal all situations in life, and then these situations aren't healed, and so we start to think to ourselves, well, I'm really not very good at this. If it's up to me, if it's all in my mind and I can do something about it, and then the situation is not fixed, well, then there's really something wrong with me. But the thing is that what's going on is at a subconscious level. So much of the problems are happening at a subconscious level. Well, subconscious means you don't know it. So you don't have conscious control over the subconscious. And this is why the practices that are laid out in Course in Miracles, one of the paths to solving these issues, this is why those lessons work. First of all, they work in the intellect. And as soon as you start doing the lessons and reading the text and the words start coming out of your mouth in conversation with people, you'll find yourself starting to say things that you read, and you may even remark to people why, Course in Miracles says, this probably isn't the most helpful thing to do, to say that to people. But the thing starts to work in your mind intellectually, and you start to put these ideas together. But more importantly, what's happening is, as you work with the ideas, something is happening under the surface. Something is happening at the subconscious level, and what is happening is old belief systems are being changed. They're being erased. They're being, if you will, they're being healed. And this is also what's going on when we become practice meditators. So there are a number of people here who aren't practicing Course in Miracles, but we're all trying to pray and get quiet. And what happens when we sit for those moments and get quiet and come to peace is that we begin to get underneath the surface and allow that spirit that is really us to shine through the illusions that we've created in the world. And this is what will happen with almost, well, the Course actually says with any spiritual practice that eventually it will lead you to that place of peace, to that place in perception where you are standing at the foot of the bridge, that God can actually come across and draw you back into that kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of oneness. And so what it's all about is changing perception. So healing is about changing perception of a particular issue. It's changing the way we're seeing things. But it doesn't, see, this is why when people first start to think about this spiritual healing kind of thing, is they think, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to pray to be healed. And then they're not healed, and either they think it doesn't work, they think I'm not a good enough prayer, or God is actually still mad at me. And I just want to make sure if I don't remember to say anything else today that I intended to say, let me do this right now. God is not mad at you. God has never been mad at you. You are part of God. God is part of you. God is not mad at you. God is not punishing you. It is our perception. It is the way we are seeing the world that's causing all the suffering. And so we want to change the way that we see. We want to open ourselves. But it's not just a matter of making a decision and saying, okay, I'm going to see the world differently now. I can't force my conscious mind to do these things for any period of time. Because what happens is, as soon as pressure is applied, I lapse back. Because I have these belief systems in me that buried very deeply, that are giving me messages, not sentences, but messages, feelings, pictures, ideas come to mind that are saying, you are not adequate, you are broken, you are you are bad. All of these messages are coming. There's something, you are in danger. You are being threatened. This is the subconscious mind, this old belief system that tells us that we are all separate from each other, sets up conflict that I don't even realize in my conscious mind. I just get the messages and then I react to the messages. And so we change those by conscious work, by discipline. We change them by, when those ideas come to mind, saying, no, I don't want, that's not the way I want to think. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to think a different thought. And so as we've said in the past, it's a good idea to have like a list. Or if you're doing the Course in Miracles, have your lesson. And when the thoughts come to mind, get the lesson out and look and say, oh, wait a minute, let me change my thinking back to this. If you're doing some other meditative program and there's a lesson for the day, get it out. Just insert those ideas into the mind. And what happens is some of them seep down into the subconscious mind, where the real change is going to occur. So healing, let me talk about this healing thing. I'm going to tell the story. I used to attend, I grew up not grew up, I mean, when I say grow up, at 31, I started going to the Unity Church. in Rockford. And then I started going to the Unity Church in Chicago, Unity of Chicago. And that's where I got really the majority of my training was in Unity. And but we would go to the Unity Church in Chicago every Sunday, and we'd see Mike Matoyan, and he was, oh, you guys are so hilarious, just funny all the time, and he just could, such a quick wit. And when he passed, Ed took over there, and we would go, almost every Sunday we'd go, and we expected to hear this message of empowerment. We hear this message of personal responsibility to change your life, and the message of having positive, inserting positive thoughts when negative ones came, and meditation and prayer. And this is the message that we're looking for. And we go there this Sunday, and there was a guest speaker. And the guest speaker was a minister. I've forgotten her name now, but she was a guest from the Christ Universal Temple in Chicago. Now, Christ Universal Temple was Johnny Coleman's church. Johnny Coleman was the first Afro-American woman to become a Unity minister in the 50s in Lee Summit, Missouri. She did not have an easy time. Even though the Unity School itself was pretty open-minded, people were definitely carrying the baggages, all the baggage from their own upbringing, right? And but she became a Unity minister, and she started a Unity church in Chicago. Eventually, she broke away from Unity and started her own church, kind of like what I did. Only she's got thousands of members that come in. It's a very charismatic church. They have the principles that we talk about here. They practice there, but it's boisterous, loud, and but really uplifting to go there. They got great music all the time. See, we've got instruments here that are unplayed. We need musicians. So anyway, they sent one of their associate ministers as a guest, and I had no idea. I did not know that this happened. It was an annual event, and it was called Healing Sunday. And this woman came, and I hadn't made the connection as to what's going on. But she comes, and she gives a nice talk. She doesn't do the meditation. Like generally, you do the meditation at the beginning and then the talk. And she didn't give the meditation. She gives her talk. And I really wasn't very inspired by her talk. I actually don't even remember it. She had another woman with her that was like right there on the side, and that woman sang a couple of songs, marvelous, just fantastic. And then she said, well, we're going to do this healing meditation now. She said, but I want you to know something before we do it. She says, I do not heal. I do not of myself heal. She said, God heals. Did you hear what I said? Amen. God heals. And she had everybody in the congregation say it, right? And they did. They went along with it. Now I'm looking. Now this congregation in Chicago is all the intellectuals and artists in the community. And I'm just going to tell you, they're not really hanging out too much at like faith healing places, right? But everybody's participating. Everybody's all up for it. And then she starts the meditation. And so what we do, we get quiet, just like we do here. Put feet flat on the floor. Let the seat fully support your weight. Close your eyes. Start to breathe. And she starts saying these affirmations. And the woman next to her is singing. Just the voice of an angel. And but deep timbre, power, coming from her. And she starts, and I don't remember what the affirmations were. She starts saying the affirmations, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I feel this warmth start to come up my back and over the top of my head. And you know how you get the goosebumps when things start getting good and when you start connecting in certain places, and you don't know quite, you're like this, you're getting up. But it was not just the goosebumps, it was this heat that was coming in. Coming in there, I had really not been feeling very well. I had a headache, and generally I don't get that kind of stuff, but I noticed right away the headache was gone. And I'm feeling this warmth. And all of a sudden I notice that I'm crying. And I have absolutely no idea. I'm not sad. Maybe I was glad. All I know is the tears were streaming down my face. And then I opened my eyes and I looked. And you know how when we did this meditation just now, everybody stayed seated. These people were up. This has never happened. I've never seen anything like that. People were up and walking around Some were looking out the window. Many people were crying. And then I looked up in the front, and there were folks going up there, getting in line. And I thought, I didn't actually at the time think Oral Roberts, but this is kind of the picture. People were getting in line, and there was a helper there from Unity that was standing behind the people, because when she laid hands on these people, they fell down like a sack of potatoes. Now I want to contrast something here. This is not the kind of crowd, again, that I would expect to participate like this. But they were being affected. But then I looked at the guy next to me who I brought with me, was Steve from Kansas City. He was not happy. He was not accepting any of this. He didn't want, and Tommy had gone with us too, and he really wasn't up for it, but he was like going along with the program. So, well, what happened? I'm just going, the bottom line here is that people were healed. People were healed. And now, my intellectual mind goes, well, it's just group hypnosis. That's what's going on there, group hypnosis. And then I thought, well, but you had this experience. I mean, you had this spiritual experience. I mean, you felt the power that was moving in the room. And I said, well, yeah, I was hypnotized too. And then I thought, well, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? What happened was people were, their suffering was eased, right? And I'm not saying that everybody that was there had permanent relief from whatever their problem was. What I am saying, though, is that people definitely had the experience and they felt this healing. Now, Steve didn't have any healing. He was not happy. He was not happy with the whole business. And here's what had happened. He attended the Unity Church down there, where in Kansas City, and they didn't do things like that down there. And so as soon as it started to happen, his mind closed immediately. Boom, closed, right? And then that was it. Nothing's coming in, right? So I was defenseless. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I was unprepared, and I got quiet to do the meditation and was open to whatever happened. And so I was open, and I got the effect. I got a result from it, right? So here, this brings me back to the idea. Well, first, remember what she said. She said, "I don't heal. I'm going to touch you, but it's not me that's healing. God heals." And so what's going on here is that we open ourselves to Spirit, and something happens. And remember, what we're talking about here is the body is just an effect of the mind, really. Again, the ideas that I'm sharing with you, these are my beliefs. I'm not trying to convert anybody. It's fine with me. Take what you need and leave the rest. It's okay. But I'm just going to suggest that the body is illusory. The body is an illusion, and it's an effect of our minds. But it reflects what is going on in our minds, just like the world around us reflects what is going on in our minds. And so this idea of opening the mind and allowing Spirit to work means that I'm dropping my defenses. I am relaxing, I'm coming to peace, and I'm going to allow whatever is going to happen, and I get an effect. I get a apparent healing. Now, what we've seen in this church is we've had some people who were really quite ill who asked us for help. And some recovered and some did not. So why? And this is a question that's been asked in the past. Why? We had two people at the same time, both had cancer. One had pancreatic cancer, very advanced stage, totally recovered, walked out of the hospital. The doctor said he never saw anything like it, and they tried to figure out why it could have occurred, because he was gone too far. It should not have occurred. And this is the same kind of thinking that I was having sitting in the church trying to figure out, this can't be real. This can't be real, right? The other person at the same time passed, laid the body down. So, could say that it was our fault because we didn't pray right. We didn't have that good enough prayer. We didn't get God. We didn't pray good enough to God for that person that passed to change God's mind. Or we could say they didn't do their part right. But neither one of these is true. And this is why when we're doing this kind of exercise, we can't allow it, when it doesn't work exactly the way we picture it, we can't allow it to make us think that somehow we made a mistake, that it was our fault. So when I say to you that all illness is in the mind, I am not saying that you can do something about it consciously, because you probably can't. Consciously, you can just have a discipline that sits you down and gets you quiet and puts you in a position so that you can allow what's underneath that conscious mind to work on the issue. And if it doesn't work out, you know what, I hate to say it, but it actually is a mystery. And when I say a mystery, I mean that there's another agenda afoot in the subconscious mind that you are not aware of. And that doesn't mean that it's a negative agenda. There's other reasons, and we don't have to worry about that. The point that I want to make here is that we can be healed in the body, in the mind. It has to start with the mind. The mind is everything. The mind is the thing that's controlling everything that's going on. And so we get quiet. We see the light, the light of us, the light of God, extending. There's nothing wrong with seeing it extending to the body. The body is, Jesus says, "He who is in me is greater than he who is in the world." He said, you can be in the world, but not of it. And this is important to understand. We are in the world.